What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Muscle Media Network. This is For the Love of the Game. I'm Joseph PIRCHER. With me, as always, Tommy Styles and Turner Riddle. What's going on, guys? How you doing?
We're doing it.
What's up?
Tommy's 2 weeks out, so we're gonna give him a pass on the lackluster intro. But with that said, with Tommy being in prep, we're just going to discuss all things contest prep. We're all, it's contest season. We all coach. We all have friends within the industry. We see everybody prepping. The New York Pro pretty much just kicked off like the full swing of the pro season. So we're going to discuss contest prep. So, Tommy, give us a little background. I know that we talked about it on our show too, but give us a little background for anybody that maybe hasn't heard. You're 2 weeks out. What's the full context right now? Where's cardio? All these things. How you feeling? What's training like? Give us a little rundown.
Cardio is 6 times a week, 20 minutes. I don't do a ton, but it's challenging. It's on the spin bike right now.
Yeah.
Training I've talked about on the other show. It's kind of just don't do anything that's going to get me hurt. Everything's really tight. Like I won't say like I'm actively going into the gym training with like reps in reserve, but I don't have that killer mentality that I have in the off season to go for a rep if I don't think it's there. From a standpoint of my body, mentally it's there, but my body's given out a couple of times on me during prep. So I don't know if that's just like the drier or the leaner you get, you just don't have that stability in certain movements, but there's just not that confidence there to go for those extra grinder reps. And that's been the biggest, learning curve for me in prep is how to almost feel like I'm giving less, but there's a goal that I'm chasing. So it's not necessarily giving less. It's just training, I guess, smarter, not harder would be the word.
Yeah.
Turner, you and I have talked about this. Like bodybuilding's challenging because when you're competing, you want to put your best package on stage. And that might mean like not doing these balls to the wall, intensity, drop sets, partials, holds, sets down the last couple of weeks, especially. Like you might get something out of that mentally, but it's not going to help you bring your best package to the stage. So I have a hard time with that because I'm training driven. Like performance is what I do all of this for.
Yeah. So
to almost feel like I have to sandbag it in order to bring my best is hard for me to wrap my head around at times. But I think the biggest things I've taken from prep are like how focused everybody gets on all the buzzwords, like, and then they like make it a part of their reality. So flat is the one that comes to my mind. Like, I feel flat. If I mentioned feeling flat, I would say it probably daily, almost. Like it's just, right. But I don't give it any power in my head. Does that make sense? Like I do cardio, I feel flat when I'm done. I go to the gym, my pumps, they're okay, but they're not great. I feel flat, but I don't talk about it. So it's just like, I don't know. I feel like if you have a good coach and you don't give yourself that out to talk about being flat all the time, then there's no real reason that it almost like you need to go through the show and then really realize that like, oh man, maybe I was too flat for too long. And that's now I know about that. But there's this pre-body, and it wasn't like that 10 years ago when I started. It wasn't, all these words weren't like so on the scene that like everyone knew about them before they even did a show. Like no one talked about your legs disappearing from doing too much cardio. You just did as much fucking cardio as you could. Same thing with being flat. Like I never once heard about that when I was getting into bodybuilding the first 4 years. I didn't even know how to like think about, like it wasn't even a thought. I was just going to go in the gym and go as hard as I could until I couldn't do reps anymore. So in being a coach and then having to take feedback from clients for their preps, it's almost made me like a fucking machine of like, I don't give a fuck what you tell me. I don't care if you tell me you're flat, you're tired, your legs hurt. I'm not changing your cardio because I'm not doing those things. So I'm not going to do it for anybody else. I want to get your takes on that.
Yeah, you definitely lose like empathy or sympathy, whatever, for those people. And man, like and it's like you said, like people just hear the word flat and they just attach that to themselves. Like, well, I'm flat. And I'm like, well, have you ever seen, if you haven't put in a solid amount of time to go through these phases where you've seen yourself full, lean but full, and then lean but flat, you don't really know what flat is. I mean, like, it's just weird because it's like you said, that's the first word that comes to mind. That's the first word that everyone says. And it's like, it's either I'm tired or I'm flat. It's never like, well, I feel great. I got a burger and a fry, so can't wait for this pump that I'm gonna go get. It's just like, yeah, well, the burger, but I'm gonna be flat. I know I'm gonna wake up flat, and then blah blah blah. And I don't really know how to put it, just because you're kind of desensitized. You should be desensitized to it. Like, you're here for one reason and one reason only, and that's to get lean. Versus, again, I think it's a lot has a lot to do with just taking pictures of yourself all the time. Like what we're talking about here is, I took on a new client the other day. He just competed in the New York Pro 212, and he's one of those guys that likes to get on the scale several times a day, right? And that's one of those things that'll start fucking with your head. It's like being flat. Once you start telling yourself you're flat, or once you start telling yourself I'm tired, or once you start telling yourself like the negative things, that's kind of where you start to go to. And I just told him, I said, look, I'm not worried about the scale. I want you to weigh one time a week, and one time a week only. And even that, he's like, one time a week, like I usually weigh when I get up, and then I'll weigh when I get home. And I'm like, I know. And I can already tell that that's going to be a problem. So let's do it one time a week. And then, that's just something that occupies your mind all day long and puts negative thoughts. Cause it's like, you don't think you're flat if you don't ever look at yourself. You know what I mean? Like, if you train in long sleeves, or, I mean, you think it, but if you don't technically see yourself, or let someone else see you, or pose in the mirror all the time, you don't really know you're flat. You're hungry, your food's low, your energy's low. But I just think that there's so many. It's like you said, I don't allow that in my head. I don't allow that power over me. And so many people are beat in prep over the smallest things, like being flat, what the scale says. No one's ever mad if the scale's high, well, in the off season. But like, if you lose 2 pounds, or like, coach, I'm gonna need another refeed. I'm gonna need another refeed. I've seen people dip 5 pounds, and then the next day they're back up 3. I've seen all kinds of stuff. You guys have seen that too. And it's just like, if they had the power, they dropped 5 pounds, they would have went and got a cheeseburger. That would have sent their weight up 10 pounds. And the next day, you're not even getting true feedback. And again, I think that plays into the role of getting on the scale all the time. If you get on the scale the same day that you send check-ins every week, it's never really that huge drastic change. You know what I'm saying? And I've seen people, man, I've talked people off the ledge every day of the week of a contest prep. Now, I don't mean for 20 weeks, but once you start getting inside 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 3 weeks, those people are just like mental cases. And I'm, I have my things that drive me up the wall too, as far as like when I'm in prep. But these people can't even do the regular job because they're so worried about what the scale is going to say. It's like they probably take the scale with them to work. It's their job. Then they're at the gym jumping on a different scale. It's like, dude, hold up. You've moved that scale 14 different times in the day. You've jumped on another scale. None of these are going to be right, and your head's fucked.
Yeah,
where a client in the update will tell you that they think the scale's off, so they're going to buy a new one, or there's
or put new batteries in it.
Something with the battery, yeah.
I'll tell you guys this right now. I have done all of those things. I have been that person about
I
all
struggle
of these
with the
different
scale.
things.
The scale gets me.
And it took me years. And like, I feel like that's a big part of like why we want to do these shows, why we want to put this stuff out, is because we did all this shit. And that stuff did eat me alive during contest prep. And I did come in off or stressed, or cortisol was high, all this shit, where you're looking at yourself after every meal and all this stuff. None of it matters. Like, I try to remind people that, and I'm only able to say this because I had to live through it myself, but all of these different scenarios where you're going to weigh yourself, you're going to look at yourself before your second meal, you're going to look at yourself before bed. none of these circumstances are anywhere near the circumstance that you're going to be seen on stage in. So what difference does it make? Like, send me your pictures Saturday morning because the show's going to be Saturday, and then just execute. You have me to think. You're paying somebody to think for you. And it's just inevitable, man. And I think that comes, you know, there's some degree that comes just from, you know, we get neurotic and we're crazy low body fat and we become obsessive and weird and we just care. You just care so much. You put so much into it. But the people that are way over the top with it, it's going to be a detriment in contest prep. It's going to come back to eat you alive. And then one of the biggest takeaways that I took from both of you guys speaking just now was not giving power to some of these like outs, like you were saying, Tommy. You know, like I have clients in prep right now and they're all doing great. So if you guys hear this, I'm not picking on you guys, any of you, you're all killing it. But like, you know, you start to see, you get inside that 6 week out mark, whatever it is, and you start to see like what these guys are saying on their posts. And it's like, you know, they're fixated on the wrong things. Like, it's like, you know, in the caption, like 8 straight low days and we're flat. Like, I had a client do that and I had to send him a message and I'm like, forget about it being a low day. That's your diet. We're bodybuilding. This is not some special magical thing or something to give power to. Like, this is just your diet for today. We're bodybuilding. It's no different than the off season. It's no different than contest prep. This is your diet for today. Because you start giving that stuff power. Oh, it's a low day. Oh, I'm flat. Oh, I'm too light. All this stuff. I'm weak. And then you're walking into the gym defeated. Like, you're not walking in as somebody that's powerful and in control of what they're doing. You're walking in defeated. So that's a big one. And then just fixating, like you guys said, like fixating on flat, man. It's like, you know, it's funny because you guys see how it gradually changes. You get somebody in off season or that hires you at the beginning of their prep, and they're like, dude, I will walk on glass if it means that I'm peeled. I will eat dirt if it means that I'm peeled. All that I care about is I want to be the most ripped guy at the show. And then you give them 4 low days at 6 weeks out because it's time to push. And they're like, hey, I just want to let you know my weight is down 1.5 pounds today. And it's like, yeah, okay, run another low day. Like, yeah, I don't care. So it's one of those things where we talked about it, Tommy, like with the training and having to put the emotion aside. It's difficult, but we're able to kind of give you guys like, hey, don't do this because we've done it. Tommy, you're living it right now. So you can turn around to your clients and say, I don't give a shit. You need to dig. This is what you signed up for. And that's why we're always harping on the fact that it just seems completely absurd to me that somebody that wants to get on a bodybuilding stage would hire somebody that hasn't done so. Because if you're going to tell me, hey, man, I need you to go back and do doubles on the stairs, and you've never been below 8% body fat and you've always just walked around heavy and fat and comfortable, don't tell me about the stairs because I don't want to hear it. But then when you are someone that's living it, especially when you're in the midst of it, like Tommy is, you're damn right. You're damn right you can say those things to your clients because you're living it on a higher degree than all of them. And that's why they hired you in the first place.
I think it's hard to, I mean, because I'm speaking from internal dialogue of like, I don't talk about being flat with like self so that I don't talk about it with others. Like, same thing with like, you know, my legs feeling like, do they feel more fatigued now than they did when I was 255? Yeah, for sure. But I don't let that thought run with me like, damn, my legs are so fucking sore. They're like, I can still train legs. I'm still able to train with enough intensity to stimulate them in prep. So why would I report that to Dom and be like, hey man, just so you know, like my legs are kind of like, what's he supposed to do with that? Pull the cardio? Like, oh, we better pull the fucking cardio. You know what I mean? So I just think it's almost like Rogan has talked about this before, and others talk, like you just have to silence your inner bitch and just realize like some of the feedback that you're giving yourself internally is actually, it's not even valid to talk about with yourself. And I mean, back to the flat thing, like Turner, like a lot of people don't actually know what being too flat is. They don't feel as full as they did in the off season. So they associate that with I'm flat because I'm not blistering full.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're just not loaded with water and glycogen. You didn't have a, sushi refeed every week for 3 months. You're a little fucking less watery. So it's not that you're flat to the point where you're losing muscle. You're just not walking around fully full blown with a high blood pressure.
I've never met someone that the day of the show they were like peaked proper, so to speak. What I mean by that is, like, you always hear people say, I wasn't full enough, or I wasn't, I was still flat. Like, I remember, Matt Porter saying something to the effect of, like, preferring flat and dry versus full and, on running the verge of being spilled over. And the thing is, like, I feel like when you come out of a show, not the next day, but maybe like the next day or the next day, that's what people want to look like on show day. But, and what's crazy is the same guy that I was telling you about just a minute ago. I'm not going to mention any names. I'm not going to mention names of coaches or anything, but he was like, "Oh man, the so-and-so messed my peak up. I look good, the day, 2 days before, blah, blah, blah." And then Monday and Tuesday, he's sending me pictures of himself in the gym, and he's got a crazy fucking pump. I mean, veins from eyes to his feet. But what people don't know is, like, you're holding water from behind. You can't see that. Like, your glutes were peeled inside out, from your neck down to your ankles from behind the day of the show. And it's like, I hate when people come to me and they want to talk bad about their coach, because a coach can only work with what he's given, but at the same time, you're basing your look off how you look from the front. You know what I mean? Or most people are, when they say something like, "I was flat on stage," they're not taking into consideration what everything from behind looks like too. You know what I mean? Like, when you're cross threaded all the way down to the very bottom of your Christmas tree, and then your glutes from hip down to, your tie-ins and things like that. He's like, "Man, he had such a chest pump that I was like, dude, you don't realize how much water you're holding from behind." I didn't say that to him just because I didn't want to shoot him down. And hell, right now I'm the good guy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm the new coach.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm still the good guy for now. But I just, it's one of those things where, like you said, when you're in the gym and someone walks up to you and they understand you're in prep, and they're in prep, and they're relaying how their prep is going to you, and you're just kind of like, when they say I'm flat or whatever, you're just kind of like, all right, I'm gonna hit the bathroom now. It's like, change that conversation, because they don't even. I don't say everyone doesn't get it, but most people, they don't really understand. And it's like you said, like, if we're trying to get shredded and you're going 8 straight days low, like, the goal is to get lean. That's why we're 8 straight days low. You're going to get a refeed. And I even think the refeed thing is overplayed nowadays. It's like, it's one of those things where it has to be it's a mental break is what it is. And don't get me wrong, like, refeed days are, I think that's a game changer in preps. I don't know that they did that, in Ronnie's day or whatever. It was just like, go eat a big cheeseburger and double fries, and, get a dessert too, or do another cheeseburger the next day, whatever. And so they've always kind of been doing the same. I think refeed days can be huge if you use them right. But I think more so than anything, it's like a mental crutch to keep people in the loop. You know what I mean? It's the cheeseburger people are dangling in front of them. Like, I have people that are just trying to get lean, not even in contest prep, where I'll give them a refeed day, and then, you're pulling them so hard through the week that the refeed day basically just brings them back to, like, ground zero. And so what I'll do is I'll give them 2 refeed days back to back. And then, eventually you got to pull that out, but that's just to kind of get them back feeling kind of decent. And so, I don't know, man. I think that the longer I do this with people, I feel like you kind of really got to understand psychology to really get these people, or maybe to what's the word I'm looking for, to manipulate these people to get what you want out of them. And that sounds bad, but I mean, that's your job.
That's what
Yeah.
they hired you for. They hired you for exactly that.
I think someone like Nick Saban has figured out the psychology of what I have to do and say to these kids to get out of them what I want, to keep them out of trouble, through the year and things like that. Like for instance, I just think that like a lot of these coaches just jump into being a coach, and they don't really think of like the aspect of I want to just coach people. I want to pull chicken. I want to add rice, but you're taking these people on as a fucking therapist is what you're doing. You know what I mean? They say like the purple hair girl is like the ideal person that a therapist wants because they just see money, right? But like in contest prep, that's the only bad thing about bodybuilders is a lot of them don't have unlimited funds. But
yeah,
the mental aspect of bodybuilding and being able to control all these variables as a coach is really, really tricky. And
we've
like
talked
you
about
said,
it all the time, man. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
when you just hire some random Joe Schmo who's like never been in shape, never really won, and just like, all right, I'm gonna sit back and watch how this goes.
Yeah, they haven't earned their stripes. And like, I mean, I don't glorify my prep. I hate, unless I'm talking to people who have walked through the same path. Like I hate talking about prep with other people. I hate talking about bodybuilding in general, but I think it's, I'm in my head 24/7. Like we're talking about psychology with clients. That's number one to me, more than like the X's and O's of like, well, on this day, this many weeks out, we're gonna pull this and put this in, and this compound goes here and this goes here. Like I like what Dusty's talked about it numerous times. Chris Aceto sends a text to everybody that when they start a prep, and it's like the 6 rules of contest prep. And rule number 1 is there are no rules, meaning it might be 24 low days in a row, 24 days without carbs. It might mean you're such a quick metabolism, you get a refeed every 3rd day. There are no fucking rules. And refeeds, like everybody kind of has their shtick in the industry because of social. Like Chris Aceto's the muffin guy. Some guy has Pop Tarts. This guy does Rice Krispies. This guy does Five Guys, but this guy likes In-N-Out. And it's like, well, you like In-N-Out because you're on the West Coast. They don't have it in all the other states. So don't get attached. Like I think the best advice I could give anybody as somebody who's in prep is just don't attach yourself to anything. Just take it hour by hour. I know I got to do this podcast with you guys. I got to get off here. I'm going to eat my meal exactly as it's been laid out to me. And I'm going to chew each bite, eat it as slow as I can, even though I could eat it in 30 seconds. From there, I'm going to go train. And like, you just start to step by step your days, just like you would any other part of the year for bodybuilding. And don't attach any emotion to any part of the process. And when you catch yourself being emotional, because I'm not saying I don't, or anybody who has been in the game a while doesn't, you just have to have the ability to check yourself. Be like, hold on, what am I doing? Why am I here? Just like we were talking about off air, like any hunger I feel now, like I had hunger pangs while doing the bike today. And I was almost glad because I was like, you know what? Number one, I take that as a sign I'm losing extra body fat because I'm having hunger that I haven't had yet. And 2, I'm going to be miserably full in 4 to 6 months to the point where I don't want to eat. And I'm going to remember this feeling right here. So just remember, whatever you're going through at any part of the phase it's only temporary. And, I like to tempt myself, be like, dude, you could get off this bike right now 5 minutes early. No one would fucking know. You could be a fraud. Yep. But the thing is like, I would know. I would live with that. And like, some people are cool with living that. I couldn't do it, but you can. I like to tempt myself, like, dude, I could go right down the road to a fucking burger joint at any point of the day if I didn't want to keep that. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can quit, you could cheat, you could do whatever, but it will come back on. Like you'll feel that at some point in your life. So I just think the psychology and like, you almost just have to like really remember how simple it is and that there are no rules to it.
Yeah. And then with the psychology of it too, like we were saying, like that was such a great point, Turner, where it's like, man, there are so many schmoes, for lack of a better term, that you could wind up hiring. Like it's a tough time to be a young, underinformed person trying to hire a coach because there's so many options and everyone has a great sales pitch. Everybody's got a good camera that they make reels with. all this shit, right? Everybody's got a spreadsheet. And so you forget, or like, you know, as a coach that has a big roster, you're helping a lot of people, in prep. If it's not something that you're all in on, or you're not doing this as a full-time job or whatever, it would be easy to forget that there's a human on the other side of it because it's just online. So like you were saying, like it's easy to go to the diet and say, you know, I'm going to pull this, I'm going to add this cardio, this, that, and the third. But again, like if you, not to harp on this, but if you haven't lived that, like that's a really difficult thing to try to put people through something that you don't know how they're going to feel. So then when they come back to you, you know, they might be relaying feedback that is accurate or inaccurate, but because you don't have that experience, you just have to take their word for whatever they're saying. Oh, I'm burning up my legs doing this cardio. If you're a coach that has never been in shape before, you might take that and say, oh shit, we gotta do a different type of cardio or pull that out. Or, you know, I need to go send you for burger and fries. And it's like, man, you're going to end up like completely missing. And, you know, with the psychology of it, it's, you have to know how that person ticks because, you know, refeed day or cheat meal, something like that in contest prep. Yeah, there are times and people that need it. You have a fast metabolism. We pulled 6 pounds off you in 2 days, something crazy. Or for the most part, it's people that have a lot of muscle. Like I see like the cheat meal branding as the big piece of the coaching industry online. Like, you know, this is my go-to. I have carrot cake or I do Chick-fil-A or whatever the fuck it is. And man, you send a lot of people to go do something like that. Like I have numerous people that I help right now that if they were ripped and I sent them to go do that, I might not hear from them for 3 days because they cannot put the fork down. And so if you don't know that and you're just doing the X's and O's as a robot behind the scenes, like you're going to ruin somebody. And that's not only going to ruin the prep, but that's going to ruin their entire experience with bodybuilding and contest prep. So on the same token, there are guys that, you know, just need a mental break and you go send them for a burger and fries, you know, you give them like, hey, this is exactly what you want to have. And then it's right back. And that hour-long break where they can go sit in a smash burger with their girlfriend recharges them for the entire week. There are people that's the case. So it's such an underreported and under-discussed part of coaching because it inevitably winds up being like you're a life coach for people in contest prep more than just a bodybuilding coach.
100%. I think that a lot of times that extra feedback that you're getting is bait. Like,
100%. Well, they've seen it. They've seen it. They've seen that 4 days in a row they tell you that they're flat, or 4 days in a row their weight has come down, or 4 days in a row their training performance has slipped in the gym. And they saw last time when this happened that you sent them for burger, fries, and cheesecake. Yeah. So, guess what, man? Mentally, I walked into the gym and I was okay with letting a rep or two slide because I knew if I told my coach he's going to send me for food. That's just how our brains start to, like, the human brain starts to work like that. If you really are pushed and really lean, and it's a wacky game. So if you haven't lived through that as a coach, again, I'm like harping on this, but how can you sift through that if you haven't lived through it yourself?
I'll tell you one thing I do as a coach is, I don't know if I've told you guys this before, but I refer to people like once they're inside like 4 weeks out, I refer to them as fragile. And I don't mean like you're going to go break a bone. I just mean like you got to be touchy with what you say, the words that you use, the, you know, like when you're texting a client back or however y'all's communication is, you got to be touchy with things you say. Like you can't say, oh man, damn dude, you are flat. Cause boom, that's like, that, you just opened up a can of shit. You know what I mean? So what I like to do is when they're, you know, it depends on what they say to me, but when they message me whether it's something like what we're discussing, I'll give it about 3 or 4 hours. Like, and what that does is that allows me to process what they said, and that allows me to process what I want to say back instead of just firing back with "shut the fuck up, dude, finish what you got to do." You know what I mean? Because that's not good. And I don't mean like that's mean. It's just like they're fragile. That's not going to help the case. That's going to make it worse. Then that's when they start talking to their buddy or another coach. Coach is not, you know, he's not taking my feedback. And that's when you start losing clients and, you know, all that goes into it. But like I said, I just refer to people as being fragile. And I don't, like I said, I'm not saying you're gonna hurt yourself or anything like that. It's like dealing with a very sensitive girlfriend. You gotta watch what you say and how you say it, but so they don't overreact and go fly off the handle. Well, you said I was flat, so like I just had a little bit extra peanut butter to that meal, and then 1 tablespoon of peanut butter led to half the jar. You know what I mean? Like I've seen all that happen, and so by me giving them those 3 or 4 hours of grace to think about what I want to say back, or not say anything at all, that because I have been the guy that's been hot headed, where it's like they'll say something to me repeatedly week after week about being flat, weights dropping. I'm like, I don't give a shit, dude. Just finish doing what you're doing. And then, like I said, I've done that, so that didn't play out like I wanted it to in the long run. And so you just have to. It's just this psychology of dealing with these people in a very sensitive state. But I will tell you this, like and this isn't me tooting my own horn or anything. It's actually kind of it's started to bite me in the ass in a relationship. Is like when I was competing year after year, I had got myself to such a point where I just blocked my feelings out all the fucking time. That inner bitch that Tommy referred to, it was there, but my way of combating it was going and training, and I had these like little mental checkpoints in my head where, like, for instance, Tommy's doing 20 minutes of cardio. In my head, if coach says do 20 minutes cardio, I'm gonna do 25. I'm gonna do 26. Or like it was like something like that. Like I'll do 25 because everyone else is gonna quit at 20. And then like, all right, so I'm on my 25th minute, and my song that I'm listening to at the time, or the video that I've got's got 47 extra seconds left. I'm gonna do those 47 seconds too. You know what I mean? Like I would do things like that, and that was my way of shutting that inner bitch up. And I just like, in the end, that's one of those things where you're working yourself a little too hard in contest prep. And so I think that, I'm not saying don't do the extra 5 minutes, but I do think that like when you take that and you start to run with that, you can run too far. And I was one of the guys, I do that. I take things too far always. And so learning how to maybe back that down a notch. But then as you start backing it down a notch, you're allowing that inner bitch to have a louder voice. And so it's like I said, now in a relationship, when you're in a relationship with someone who does have feelings and cares nothing about contest prep and things like that, you're like, wow, like I'm treating this person like, shut the fuck up, you're just bitching, or shut the fuck up, you're getting on my nerves saying things that I don't want to hear right now. And that's how I treated myself for all this time. And it's like, again, I know that when I prep again, I'll have to tune back in, and she'll have to know that like this is just the Turner that we're dealing with in prep. Now I'm not like throwing food up against the walls or beating on her or anything like that. It's just like I don't got time for that. Not while I'm prepping. You know what I mean?
Turner, is that something you notice like with each prep you've evolved or gotten better at it?
Gotten better at doing what?
Like being more mindful of how you are perceived by others, where it's like, because just for me, to put it in context, like, man, it took me many contest prep to realize that the fucking sun does not revolve around when I need to eat and when I need to train, regardless of who I was around or what relationship I was in. Like everything 16 weeks out, there's a hard stop that I don't give a fuck about what anyone has to say. But as I've, it took me probably 6 or 7 like contest seasons to start to have some grace about it, where it's like, you know what, no, I could just go train later. Like if this thing is going on and it's going to make everyone else around me happy and easy for them, well then, you know what, that's indirectly going to make things a little bit easier on me. So I'm just asking, like, have you had that type of like progression where you were just a complete menace early on, and then it's gotten better each time?
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I first started, it was just me and bodybuilding. Like,
yeah,
there was a girlfriend, she trained with me, but we went to the gym when I wanted to go to the gym. We ate when I wanted to eat. We went to the restaurant I wanted to eat at. And for many, many years, that's how it was. And like, if you weren't on board with that, I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Like if you wanted to meet me there and eat, that's cool, but I'm gonna be there. And when I sit down, I'm ordering. So if you don't show up before or after, like you'll just be eating when I'm done, or you know what I'm saying? So like now, yes, I have to do that where it's like I want to wake up, eat, go train, but sometimes it's like you know, that's got to get swapped around, or you know, I might have to take this meal and change them around and just do little things like that. But you're right, it does make it a little easier on you when everyone else can kind of be in alignment with you. And so for those people that do prep that have a family and kids and things like that, yeah. Now I'm not saying because your child wants to eat macaroni and cheese, that's what we made and that's what we ate and that's what you made work for your diet. No, that still doesn't work. But yes, I think that like,
but maybe it means, to your point, maybe it means you sit down with your meal. Maybe it's you wait 15 minutes so that the mac and cheese is ready so that you can sit down with your kid and eat your meal instead of it being like, nope, it's fucking 3 o'clock and you gotta wait.
Oh yeah, 100%. And the thing is, like I said, when I first started, it was just me and bodybuilding. Like I didn't have I had a job, but I didn't have real responsibilities. Like now, you know, 10, 12, 15 years later, where it's like, I've got a lot riding on every single day where, things have to you have to learn to juggle and shift and still be, and that's what I think makes a really good bodybuilder. You know, we talk about what a really good bodybuilder is. A really good bodybuilder is one that can adhere to the plan, you know, time after time, year after year. But I also think a really good bodybuilder can be a really good person in business too. And what that means is like, you can wear a bunch of different hats, you can juggle and put out a lot of different fires at the same time while still getting what you want. You know what I'm saying? And versus being the one track mind bodybuilder that's the only thing you can think about all day long is your prep. And you know, I'm not saying you can't be successful and have a big time job and all that, but when all you can think about from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed is your prep, your ceiling's really low. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's why I think you hear a lot of bodybuilders, even though I don't think most bodybuilders are as successful as they could because they can't turn those blinders off. But, you know, like you would hear like a Jay or a Phil or some of those guys say, inside 6 weeks out, I shut it down. I'm not traveling. I'm not guest posing. I'm not doing appearances. Like, this is my time. And so, you know, that just being that aware that I need these 6 weeks for me because I'm a whole different person inside these 6 weeks, I think that's huge. That's just a one step. You know what I mean?
I remember
and
hearing
that's
Ronnie
six.
say 12,
That's 6 weeks out of an entire year, though. Sorry, Tommy. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I just remember hearing an interview where Ronnie talked about like 12 weeks. He was from the Olympia. He was shutting it down. There was no more guest posing, no more traveling. He's going to be in his home gym and his turf, like, because as a bodybuilder, you do it for years. You get your quirks, you get you get these little like habits that you don't even realize have formed, and it's just like, I mean, Turner, I know you eat with the same damn fork or spoon for the whole prep. So let me ask you though, because you talk about doing the extra 5 minutes and do it, like I create all those little games in my head too, like the last from minute 19 to minute 20 on the spin bike. It's not but like for whatever reason, I have to go as hard as I can, like hit. Yeah. My heart rate between 120 and 130 the first 19, but that last, it's like, I'm going to break the bike. I'm going to try to pedal as hard as I can. Like, that's my mental game. Like, I'm finishing this last minute. Other people might coast down because they're coasting across the finish line. I'm going, that's my mental game with myself. And I do that in many other ways too.
Yep.
Have you ever been told like, hey, Turner, great look on stage, but you're too flat. It looked like you were too run down, too this, too. That's what I'm saying. Like, all these little fears that people have of being too flat or too this or too that, unless you've had an actual good judge tell you like, hey, you look too flat on stage, or hey, like it looked like, you know, your physique was really tired and run down. And then maybe you could relate that to, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been deadlifting 3 days out, whatever. Man, I'd rather do too much and know that I did as much as I could rather than ever wonder if, I don't know if I did enough. And then I showed up fat on stage, or I showed up soft from the back. Like unless you've heard from a judge or like a trusted coach or somebody who doesn't have any stake in like giving you feedback that's like, hey, you look really run down. Like, You know, I think
No.
you got to go too far to know what that is. Same
Yeah.
thing in 2021, man, like with Dusty being down and like I'm in the ICU prepping while he's trying to get better. You know, I saw the effects in my physique of sleep deprivation, of stress, of like, you know, bloating, couldn't hold any food down. And now I can use this prep as a gauge for my sleep. I still don't sleep normal. I've talked about it on other episodes, like 3 hours in a row is the most I sleep right now. And then I do 2 shifts of that per 24 hours. That's my how I sleep. There's 30 fucking nerds who post spreadsheets who would tell me I'm doing everything wrong, this, that, and the other. And it's like, I have a gauge of my body. I see my pics. I'm flat. I'm not showing the signs of having any issues from too little of sleep. So for me, I've got my system down to where I know what my body's check engine light. And if I did feel those things, I would just not train. I would skip a training session in prep to pull myself back. And years ago, I would have never did that. But now you start to learn, like, you're not going to lose muscle if you miss a training session, if you catch up on some sleep.
Right.
And that was such a great point. Like, you kind of touched on an awesome point that Turner made earlier about, like, in terms of if you're, you know, you're going to miss one way or another. I would as an athlete and as a coach, I would so much rather miss on flat and fucking peeled, because every time I've done that, whether it was with a client or myself, the feedback is never, man, you were a little flat. You would have looked better, more fold up. It is always, holy shit, you were the most peeled guy in the show and everybody couldn't stop looking at you. That's what you should be going for. And I feel like as a coach, like, that's what you paid me for. Like, that's what you hired me for. The essence of bodybuilding and getting on a bodybuilding stage is not to show up watery and full blown. Like, you look and feel like that for 50 weeks out of the year. You're getting on this stage and under these lights specifically to look peeled. That's the whole point of getting on stage. So in terms of, like, you know, flat or this or that, it's like, man, like, if you felt like if you got in shape, if you got in real shape for a bodybuilding contest and you were underwhelmed or unhappy with your size or your fullness or whatever, you need to spend more time growing. That's it. That's all it comes down to.
I think that
any show I'm at, I'm looking for if I don't have a guy, like, I'm looking for the most dug out guys. I'm never looking for the fullest guy. I want to see who's got the freakiest conditioning. And I think a lot of fans of bodybuilding will say the same thing. Like, if they're just at a random show, go to a show on a Saturday, like, whose cheeks are sunk in. That's what I'm looking for. I'm never like, damn, that dude is full blown. Like, I saw Marcus Rule. Like, we've seen the full blown. Like, no, it's never going to be replicated in 2023. So show us the fucking striations and the nasty conditioning.
I mean, as an example, I was just at the New York Pro in person. And, you know, like we talked about, the top 5 was fucking fantastic. Those guys were all excellent. But 2 of the guys that stood out to me most, Brent and Robin Strand, were not even in the second call out, I don't think. But they were fucking peeled. And I walked away from that show like, holy shit, what did those guys do, and what the fuck were they feeling like to look like that, to where they just turn and walk off the stage and everything fucking ripples? That's bodybuilding, man. Like, I'm talking about them on our show right now, not the guy who won. So to give you an idea, like, that should be, I think I'm so with you, man, Turner, on that. Like, you would so much rather miss on flat and peeled.
I think that, going back to what you said a second ago, this is why people hired you, because what you're saying is, like, people hire you to get shredded, so forth and so on. But, you know, we go back to the psychological thing of this. People are hiring you to win. Like, they're hiring you basing you've sold them, or they've been sold on watching you that you're going to make them win. It's not that you're going to be the most shredded person on stage. It's that I'm going to hire Tommy, and he's going to make me win. And so that's the hang up. And that's why you see so many people run jump coaches. It's because if most of the time, if you can't get it right that first time, and I don't mean that you didn't get it right, it just the cards didn't fall that way where you fucking won. And that's, you know, in a sport where you can control so much, you cannot control that every single time. And so, I always take it as, this person is hiring me to make them win. And that puts a lot of pressure back on me, because I can get anyone lean. That's not the hard. Well, as long as they follow the plan, I can get anyone lean and get them peaked for the show and things like that. But making sure they win is really out of everyone's hands. You know what I mean? I can do all the things and then put you up on stage and so forth and so on. But I can't dictate if you win or not. You know what I'm saying? And that's the hardest part. I think most people don't understand is that, like, aside from playing a political game where the promoters of the shows and things like that, and I do think that stuff goes on to a certain degree at certain shows. At your Dexter Jackson Classic in your hometown, that shit ain't fucking happening. You know what I mean? Like, you just show up, bring it, and the guy that usually stands out the most is going to win. And
you can prep for a show and treat it like you're Olympia 20 weeks, and you're gonna feel yourself that you're gonna be the winner, the hero. And then Cade, who just did North Americans 3 weeks earlier, needs to requalify. He shows up to the show and you know what I mean? Like Nick Walker's doing a qualifier. Like, hey, guess what, guys? We're all taking second. That's almost like a good consolation. Like, oh, I can get second best today because there's a freak here who just needs to requalify. And after you got enough skin in the game, like you kind of earn that right to walk into any regional or state show, and you're the winner based off of muscle. Like, it is a size show too.
Yeah, and like kind of going with a lot of things that you said and I've said on a previous show is like the mental tricks. I know this, like I said, this sounds fucked up, but this is just one of the things that I always said is like, I said to myself, when and I was doing bodybuilding shows when there would be 60 bodybuilders in the show, not 6 bodybuilders total across 8 different weight classes, right? I got off every single day knowing that, like, in 6 weeks, I'm ruining all 60 motherfuckers' day. I'm ruining their fucking prep. I'm ruining their families. Their family had to come to the show. They're going to go out to eat afterwards, and they're all going to be bummed. And I hope that I get to walk through the same restaurant that they're all eating at with their family, trying to drink and have a good time and try to cheer him back up. Because, like, that was my way of saying, I'm going to do all these things that nobody else is willing to do because I'm going to ruin their fucking day. I want them to have prep for 20 weeks to get beat. You know what I mean? Because they all, and I'm not saying people don't think like that, but majority of people are like, I wasn't going through social media like, well, let me hashtag light heavyweight and see who all shows up, who all's posting they're going to be a light heavyweight. No, like, anybody that showed up was getting fucking beat. That's how I looked at it. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying, you talk about tricks and how you create a mindset that can be damn near untouchable for, weeks and years on end. Those are just the things that I told myself. And, like, yeah, is it cocky? Is it conceited? Am I narcissistic? I'm all that. Was all that. You know what I mean? So, like,
okay, but were you also the guy that showed up and did exactly what you fucking set out to do? Yes.
Many times.
Okay, is it arrogance? Is it all these different things? You could call it whatever the fuck you want, but you can call it I was in the middle of the first call out. Like, I would rather hear that my clients or one of my friends or somebody I cared about treated it like that the whole time instead of walking in and being like, I'm on my 8th low day. I'm not going to be able to train today. It's like, no, have some fucking pushback, have some fucking balls, and be the guy. There's somebody that has to win the show. Somebody's getting the trophy. It's got to be somebody. So why the fuck wouldn't it be you?
100%.
Well, when they asked Kobe who would win in one-on-one versus him and LeBron, he said him without, like, I win. Why? Because one-on-one's what I do. Like, to me, that's just confidence in your skill. Like, and bodybuilding isn't quite like other sports where it's like there's a definitive subjective way to win and lose. But at the same time, if you put in year after year after year, like,
if you're good enough, it's pretty fucking definitive.
Nick Walker's one of the best at that. I think he probably exhibits the most self-belief I've ever seen of anybody. He publicly puts himself out there as the winner of every single show he does. And even when he loses the next day, he still believes he's going to win the next show. He's going to do, like, that's a superpower, I think.
Dude, bodybuilding has no rules. Not one fucking rule of bodybuilding. It doesn't matter how much you take. It doesn't matter how many carbs you eat, don't eat. It doesn't matter how long you've been no carbs. And so when the table's set like that, I mean,
Bring
It's
it.
like, I feel like you dictate if you're going to win. I mean, you dictate being in the first call out or the top 2 or top 3 at that point, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just say there's going to be 10 people in your class. But if you go into the mindset, if you go into prep thinking there's no rules here, right? I mean, for me, that's like, I already know I'm going to be in the top 2. And if I'm not, then in my mind, I'm thinking he took it further than I took it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, that's the same point, Tommy. We've talked about it. Like, you know, you realizing you needed to just be more mindful with the training and stuff. Like you were saying, there's no rules. And it's also, you're not going to get fucking brownie points for being the guy that pulled a 500-pound RDL at 6 days out. The guy that was the best physique is going to win. So it like, you don't get additional points, or you don't get a pat on the back, or, you know, even like, you know, we have clients that obsess over their body weight or whatever. And it's like, I have a guy that's coming in, he'll probably wind up being like 207 or 208. And he asked me the other day, he's like, you think we should just pull 10 pounds and be the biggest light heavyweight? I said, no, I think we should bring you in at your best so that you can be your biggest heavyweight. And it doesn't make a difference. Do you want to look good, or do you want to suck yourself down and like obsess over, I'm the biggest guy in the light heavyweight class? It's like, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, at the end of the day, like, because we cannot play defense, we can't decide who shows up. I'm going to steal this from one of my friends, but you wind up being the trophy. Like, your photos and how you looked on stage, it doesn't matter. You're going to go up there with your individual routine, and there's going to be photos of that, and that speaks for itself. I've been ripped and looked fucking awesome at shows and been third. And guess what? I got those pictures back after, and I wasn't happy. I went to win. But then you see those photos and you're like, I fucking nailed it. I'm proud of this. There's nothing else that I could have done. Whereas I've been in lineups that sucked and won, and I didn't like how I looked. And let me tell you, that's not a good feeling. So it just comes down, like, you and how you execute your prep and what you bring should be the reward. And if you're doing it for the right reasons, like, that's all you should really need. But I feel like we could probably go on all day, and I got to run. So this was a good one. You guys have anything else to add before we go?
Tommy, I want to ask you one question. Earlier, you were talking about 2 questions. Is your cardio steady state?
Yeah, it's been that way the whole prep. So
you just check your heart rate?
Yeah, so I don't use the machine and trust that heart rate. I like, because I was a medic, I check my pulse, and I just use the clock to count it, 10 seconds, and then I times it by 6. So I kind of know where I'm at. And
then right after that, you said that, like, your body's given out a couple times in prep to where you knew you were pushing too hard.
Yeah, I don't know if it's pushing too hard, just like, and I mean, we could get into this.
I was just curious what that looked like when you say your body kind of gave out. What does that? You get hurt?
Yeah, I've had a few strains. Strain my adductor, strain my pec, little hip flex, like, just like little pops and movements, and there's no like pre-warning. I'm hydrated. I get my electrolytes in. One of them I just flew the day before, so I might have been a little dehydrated more than I thought. But I think that's where I've had to adjust in prep, kind of like getting away from top set, back off set. I don't have any preconceived numbers I'm trying to hit. There hasn't been a logbook for a few months now. I'm just going in there and almost training to a point where I'm like, I like how that feels, and I'm just going to focus on consistency and rhythm of the reps rather than overloading the bar anymore on that day. Yeah. And I use drop sets. I use stuff like that just to give me more blood, but I've had to really just kind of check it on how heavy I can train. I think it's because, like, I have smaller joints. So, part of trying to keep up with Dusty for all those years, like, I did take some wear and tear that, like, I don't think I'm built to handle heavy poundages over and over and over. So I'd be curious to see how I progress in the off season next time, as far as maybe it's just not worth it to do, 5-6 rep sets anymore. Maybe I should bump the rep ranges up and just get strong with them, but, we'll kind of see. But yeah, I've just had a couple, like, and it's nothing to do with bad form or anything. It's just like, you're rep 3 and then you just feel like Velcro racket. Shit, I hope it's not messed up and it never bruised. So
yeah.
That's like what you were saying, Turner, like you were talking about from a mental side, which was a great point. But there does reach a point, maybe not even like per the weeks out, but just how lean you are, that you do, like, there are times when I've been like peeled and you go into the gym and I do feel fragile. And I'm
Oh yeah.
not going in with that inner bitch voice. That's not it. Like objectively, my body is fragile. You still go in powerful and do what you can. But yeah, there are times where shit just feels like it's ready to go. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Winstrol and arithmetics seem to be like that combo that makes me feel like I'm fucking made of like
yeah, everything feels like a piano string that's ready to just fucking
cornflakes,
rip.
dude. It's just like crunchy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I think that's a good spot to wrap it. I got to get running. For Turner Riddle, Tommy Styles at 2 weeks out, Joseph Pircher. This was the Muscle Media Network. And until next time, guys, we are